The chronological Bible reading for May 4th is 2nd Samuel chapters 5 and 6 and 1st Chronicles chapters 13 through 16. Did you notice that David knew that Yahweh had established him as king over Israel when the foreign king, Hiram, began sending him cedar and other building materials to build his castle or palace? Isn't it interesting? I never really paid attention to that before, or maybe I just never really thought about it. Why was it that when the foreign kings began blessing David, that was when it finally clicked in his heart that God had settled the kingship, that his worst days were behind him? How would my life be different if I knew that God had established me as a pastor before he placed me in a church, before I had other pastors of other churches come and acknowledge the calling that God had placed on my life? What is it that God is calling you to, and how can you partner with him to establish you in that, whatever it is, before the world acknowledges it? One of the most striking stories in these chapters we read today is the transporting of the ark. David brings men and put the ox, they put the ark on an ox cart and they're having it transported back to Jerusalem where it belongs. And as one of the oxen stumble, Uzzah reaches out to steady the ark to keep it from falling off of the cart, and God strikes him dead. This results in great fear and even anger. And we read in 1 Chronicles 15, verse 13, when David is saying to the Levites, let's go bring the ark of Yahweh's name back with us. We didn't know because we didn't inquire of Yahweh the last time, and it resulted in the death of a man. How much trouble do we get ourselves into? How many lives are lost because we do things without asking God? And then the sheer power of God's presence striking a man for getting too close, who wasn't properly consecrated. When God's power comes, great and terrible things happen. It is great and wonderful for those who are with God, who are clothed in his righteousness, who have their hearts right and their minds right. But for those who are not ready to enter into God's presence, it's going to be terrible. Let this be a warning to all of us that we have to inquire of God. How is it that we are supposed to act? What is it that we are supposed to be doing? What do you require of us, Yahweh? And then let us be careful to do it so that when his power comes, it doesn't take any of our lives. He is coming in power. We must be ready. The other striking story in these chapters is the daughter of Saul, Michal, and how she is disgusted by David's worship when David is dancing unapologetically before God's presence as his ark is being carried back in the right way to the city. And when she sees David not acting like a king, just worshiping without abandon, it disgusts her. And she even tells him, how dare you act that way? That's no way for a king to act. David, clothed in the linen ephod, which only the Levites, only the priests were supposed to wear. But David was consecrated in his heart. He was a priest, even though he didn't carry that title. And he didn't care what anybody thought. He only cared about doing the right thing, worshiping God with all of his heart, with all of his soul, with all of his mind, and with all of his strength. And Michal was filled with a religious spirit that forbade her from partaking in the worship of the most holy God. It's one thing in our church services to not be expressive in our worship. It's a whole other negative level for us to judge the people who are expressive in their worship. If you're offended when other people are worshiping God, perhaps you have a religious spirit that you need deliverance from. We're happy to pray for you as well. Do you ever wonder why Jesus would ask people, do you wish to be made well? A lot of people don't want to be made well. A lot of people love being victims. Have you ever met someone who just wants to complain all the time? We want to fix people. We don't want to see people suffer. We want to offer them hope, but sometimes people just don't want it. They're comfortable being a victim of their circumstances, of their family, of their lot in life. Friends, we can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped, and God can't either because he lets us make our own choices. People like Michal are daughters of the king of the flesh. She was happy in her victimhood. She did not wish to be made well, and it resulted in her family line ceasing with her. I wonder if David was never intimate with her again. We don't know that. We just know that she never bore a child. In biology, one of the definitions of a living organism is reproduction. God created us to reproduce. And even if it's not physically, let it be spiritually. Let us mentor people. Let us share the gospel with people. Let us bring them into the kingdom of heaven and then disciple them the way a parent disciples their child until the child reaches adulthood and then can begin that process again. From the creation story in Genesis, God told mankind to go be fruitful and multiply. Our goal is to live that out spiritually in our hearts, in our bellies. Let us be fruitful and multiply. Let us multiply joy. Let us multiply love. Let us multiply good things, bearing fruit for the kingdom of heaven, for that is why we are created. God bless you, my friends. Thank you for tuning in and being on this journey with me through the Word of God in 2024. We're almost halfway now in May. And just a quick word about our Sunday meetings, 8:30 Eastern this Sunday, May 5th. Text me at 239-776-0917 or go online to BibleInOrder.com and fill out the contact page if you would like the Zoom link. It's going to be a great time with a big announcement and conversation surrounding that. You won't want to miss it. See you tomorrow.